Welcome everybody to the Comic Book Syndicate, where we review comics and comic-related items. And this week, Mike?
We are going to be continuing our ongoing segment where we have people film themselves at home asking us questions and sending them in. So, let's see what our viewers had to say this time.
Hi, I'm interested in reading about that Captain America fellow, but where do I start?
What an appropriate question. We just happen to be in the mood to talk about Captain America. George, what would you recommend as a good place to start?
If I wanted to get into Steve Rogers, I would start with the Adventures of Captain America. The artwork is amazing. You get all the fun of Red Skull and Nazi robots and all the great stuff. Bucky meets Cap. You get a good origin story from it.
Written by Fabian, I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Is it Niceza?
Niceza. No one knows how to pronounce his last name. But yeah, Kevin Maguire.
Smith.
And I also got to point out that Kevin Maguire was the first artist to draw Captain America with a full chainmail. Now, since then, John Cassidy's done it. Other people have given him credit for starting that trend. But
they call it scale mail.
Yes, excellent comic. Highly recommended. Very rare. It has not been collected in a trade, I don't think.
Not that I've seen. No, it hasn't been collected in trade from what I've seen.
According to our source over there, it has not been collected in a trade. Now, I dug really deep.
Oh.
I personally prefer the old stuff, usually, right? Obviously, if you're going to start, you could go right back to the beginning with the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby stuff, or followed by Jim Steranko. I think Captain America really came to a head with the Steve Englehart run.
Blossom.
Yes, in the mid-'70s here. Steve Englehart and Sal Buscema, okay? They did a really long run of Captain America. And I was rereading my Essentials copy last night, and I came across a great passage.
Wait a second. Excuse me, sir.
Yeah?
You ever read comics?
Yeah, I love them.
What about Captain America?
I happen to have a copy right here, actually.
That's a startling coincidence.
So on top of us, our viewers will get more opinions. What's your name, sir?
I'm Armando. I overheard you guys talking. If I were going to start with Captain America, I'd start with the newer runs, like Brubaker, for example, my favorite writer there. He wrote Captain America. This is Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier, and why do you think that's a good place to start?
Throughout the book, it covers a lot of Captain America's history, the past captains. Most importantly, it addresses the issue of what really happened to him and Bucky, his sidekick, and their alleged death in 1944. So it brings you back up to speed with the Steve Rogers Captain America.
Was this the first Captain America story you read?
No, actually it wasn't. I read about Captain America in the Avengers, which is really what sparked my interest for him. I thought it was awesome, great leadership. I liked his power as more of a symbol as opposed to an actual superhero per se.
Symbol, a metaphor.
Exactly.
And is this confusing for new readers?
It can be, because
at
heart, Captain America is just a regular human extended to the top peak of their physical abilities, right? As you can see.
Yes.
But, what makes him such a good and powerful figure is that he inspires others to do their best. He inspires hope in his friends, fear in his enemies, right? And when he throws his mighty shield, all of his foes must yield.
Whoa, hold the phone. Now, let me ask you this. Has he ever inspired you to do anything?
Every day he inspires me to do my best, you know, not be a little... He inspires me to work harder.
Wow, that's great. That's incredible. Thanks, man.
No problem.
Thanks for coming out. And, you know what? I'm going to give you my Captain America comic.
Hey, awesome.
All right, just don't bend it.
Look at that.
No problem, man. Thanks, Armando.
Thank you very much, citizens. Not often we get a nice passerby who happens to read the same
trying to shoot a segment here.
Hey, I'm sorry.
Happens every time.
Wait, Michael. 1 second. Have you read Captain America before, sir?
Yes, I love it.
Perfect.
Well, there we go. 2 in a row. Well, if you were to start reading Captain America, where would you suggest that any normal reader or citizen begin their readership?
I would start at the beginning with his first solo series, which is back in the 60s, the Tales of Suspense, issue 59.
Sure.
And it's a Jack Kirby Stan Lee run. You can get them in trades or hardcovers. And in May, they'll have an omnibus out running the whole run of that run, so it'll be great.
Now, this Jack Kirby fellow, what's the big deal about him? Why is he so good? Why is he so popular?
He is the king. He's King Kirby. His art is amazing, and a lot of times people remember him on Fantastic Four or Thor, but his Captain America run is just great. I mean, the fists are flying, the shield is flying, just some great action scenes. I definitely recommend it for his artwork alone. It's just phenomenal.
Well, was he not also the creator?
Yes, he was a co-creator with Joe Simon.
Yes, he was back in the 1940s, 1941, I believe,
That's right, yes.
Well, you know what? Thanks for coming out tonight.
Not a problem, thank you.
You can get back to your daily routine, wherever it may be.
That's right, shopping for baguettes and whatnot. That's what I get. I always want to get a baguette out the shopping bag. Maybe the carrots with the long greens on the end. I want to look like, you know, cultured, I guess. Also, are you doing any other conventions this summer? Or are you
I have some that I might do, but this is kind of it for me for a little while.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I'm going to take a little break and get back to work.
I don't know if it's for the same reasons as me, but I've been taking the time off just for the kids. And they probably can't even read any of the material you've been doing for the last little while.
Of course they can.
They can, yeah.
Get them real drunk first.
Yeah, I'm hammered. Smoke this cigarette I made myself. With my own hands.
You open up that pack of smokes, you can have it.
There you go.
I don't let them read the voice. It's funny, they're aware of them though, but they don't know why.
Yeah, well, they see the
I panic and turn stuff over when they come into the studio.
I'm a big fan of your Wolverine run.
Thank you.
And I'm wondering the circumstances that came about that sort of led to yourself and Greg Rucka doing it with the relaunch.
Well, I think the Marvel at the time really liked the Wolverine that I did in The Punisher with Garth, where he got his face blown off.
Yeah, with the midgets?
Yeah, so they seemed to really enjoy that, and they knew I had a real passion for the character. So when I got done with Transmetropolitan, they offered me a run on that, an exclusive for Marvel at the time. And Greg, we didn't know who the writer was going to be, and then they brought in Greg, and when he said yes, it was awesome, and Greg and I really enjoyed working together. That was a good...
And just to get back to that quick, that Punisher run you did, that great panel of Wolverine with the no flesh and the silver.
Thank you. He was like screaming?
Yeah, that is,
thanks.
Not only was one of the best panels I've seen, but brought so much debate in the comic shops.
I had to fight for that.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. That was something like, they were like, I don't know. And come on, it's heavy metal. That's rock and roll.
Yeah,
that's a screaming skull face.
It is.
People that read comics love this.
It was beautiful.
That's fun. That makes comics fun. And they were like, all right, and then went over very well. So.
Yeah, and again, one of the best, like, is at that point, Punisher, Wolverine had been teamed up so many times and had been so disappointing that, like, finally to have a really great one was awesome.
Thank you. Comic Book Syndicate assemble.
Okay, here we go, guys. Viewer mail time. We're gonna answer questions from our viewers. Okay. Here's the first one.
Is this like old-fashioned mail, like email?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, George. Okay, the first question is from Edward2962, and his question is, how do you feel about the level of explicitness that has gone up in superhero comics? On one hand, you can say more adults read comics, so it's okay, but on the other, sales are way down. Does this type of material put off some folks in the general audience? It's actually ironic, because I've been getting into a pretty big debate on YouTube with some of our viewers about explicitness in comics. I can only say one thing. If it's done well, that's fine. If it's not done well, that's a problem, and 90% of the time it's not done well. And I would say, as a rule, superhero comics are not the place to deal with graphic sex, graphic violence, rape, molestation, things like that. They can deal with mature topics, but because it's an escapist fantasy genre, I don't think it's appropriate. That's just my opinion.
No, absolutely. I mean, if it's done well, it's done well. That's fine. But when you want to open up the idea of anything can go in a medium where no censoring will happen and there is no, I mean, that's what we've gotten out of in comics, right? Is you can talk about drugs, you can talk about abuse, you can make real problems that'll feel, I guess, grittier. It does go too far sometimes with certain characters. I mean, certain icons should not be touched, I guess. You know what I mean? But I mean, that's why they have Vertigo. That's why they have the alternate. And I think comic companies, if they use those adult parameters properly, I think that's fine. I mean, Marvel kind of had the Max series for a while, and then they just sort of let it go. But I mean, as long as they use those, I think it's no holds barred. Go right ahead.
Kevin?
Well, I think I agree with that too, and I think part of the problem is that it gets overused, and they sell some comics. They sell a lot of comics because maybe the violence was new at the time or explicit, and then they start to pump everything out that way. Yeah. And I don't think that's great, because then what happens is, you just said before about limiting to just adult readers, and then you forget the children.
But it goes to good storytelling too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
right.
You know, Captain America should have a little bit of blood and gore and a little bit of sex here and there to punctuate it to make the villain seem that terrible.
Yeah.
But when I pick up Punisher, I know it's not all I'm going to see page after page after page. It's just going to be all stuff. Plus, people make a way bigger deal about violence than they do about sex, which is bizarre. You know what I mean? Like, people get really hung up on violence and not as hung up about sex, or some people get really hung up on the sex and not about enough about the violence.
I find it to be the
should be an even playing field. So I mean, I get both, right? I get different people complain about different things. I don't want my kids stabbing each other with sticks, or there was a boob in there. It's just
I guess I can wrap it up by saying, if you want to deal with realistic topics, you should probably not do it with a character dressed like this. Okay, here's our second question. This is from Iggy92. He says, only a few comic books have sold more than 100,000 copies in the past 6 months. Why do you think there is not a lot of people buying comic books nowadays? George?
Well, we talked about this before. It's partly the digital, but I don't know if you can factor in. I think it's more the trade paperbacks that would explain that decline in number.
Okay.
I mean, does
people
trade paperback?
Yeah,
so I'm getting a year's worth of comics in 2 purchases, as opposed to, and it's all coming in at the end of the 6-month season, right?
Sure.
So there's less weeklies.
Okay, Kevin.
Well, I agree with that too, and I think part of it though is it is competing entertainment. There's so much different types of entertainment for the children. We talked about too that a lot of this stuff is still written, I think, for adults, and it's not put in an area that it's available to children as much as it could be. And I think that part of it is the direct market, although it's good, it's also maybe caused some problems with getting the sales and putting the exposure.
Remember Max Milk?
Yeah.
These people go to Max Milk or 7-Eleven and pick up an issue.
That's how I started.
Not anymore.
And even the hospital gift shop doesn't carry them
you're
anymore.
Right. You're absolutely right. I think the 2 biggest things you're right are the availability. They're not available, but even within comic shops themselves, the reason why sales are going down, I think, is because of the homogenization of the superheroes that are there, the duplication. We've got one X-Men comic, now we're going to make 11 of them, and you have to buy them all. So that automatically makes you choose between them, and you do that for a few years. Eventually, you're just going to say, you know what, I'm not buying any of them. The other thing I think is the multi-part crossovers that DC and Marvel put out, where you have to read dozens and dozens of comics to understand the story properly. I think that's killing, it is killing the industry, and yet every year Marvel and DC continue to do it, and as long as readers continue to buy them, they're going to keep doing it.
I like to call that the Atlantis Attacks Syndrome.
Yes, that's where it all started. Okay, I think that, unfortunately, I know that we're having a great time, but we have to wrap it up. Yeah. Maybe, you know what, maybe we'll do this again soon. How about that? Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Probably next week when we talk about comic books again.
Hi, I want to read Captain America. Where do I start? Hi, I'm reading a... hold on. Hi, I really like that Captain America fellow. Where should I start?